So she's already spoke to them and confirmed, oh yeah, we were here.
Yeah, you heard that right. Tone of Foolio's alleged killers admitted to being at the scene. A jail phone call between the suspects just leaked, and what's in it is chilling. They casually talk about the murder and even hint at who might have paid them. The call reveals way more than anyone expected. I've got all the details. Let's break it down. In the call you hear laughing after the murder. One of the voices says, "We got him." The tone comments smug, like they just won something, not like they had just taken someone's life. The whole call is under 2 minutes long, but every second is disturbing. It doesn't feel random, it feels planned. Cold, calculated. But before we dive deeper into the call, let's go back. Foolio was shot and killed in Tampa, Florida on June 23, 2024. He was there for his birthday and had posted online all night telling fans where to pull up, inviting them to a pool party. What he didn't know was that he was being watched, not by fans but by enemies. According to police, the suspect tracked Foolio all over the city using his social media posts and other ways of surveillance. They waited until around 4:30 a.m. to strike right outside a Holiday Inn. Foolio was ambushed and shot multiple times by different weapons. 3 others were injured but survived. Authorities later named the shooters as Sean Gaywright, Richard Murphy, and Davian Murphy. 2 others, Isaiah Chance and Elisa Andrews, were accused of helping plan the attack. But what connected them wasn't just the streets, it was the fact that they treated this murder like a show. Prosecutors say the planning was next level. They came to Tampa with one goal, said the state attorney, and it was to kill. And now we know how they felt afterward. That leaked jail call was recorded just days after they were arrested. It was sent to local media, then leaked online. In the audio, one of them laughs while talking about the news reports going viral. Another says Foolio never saw it coming. One even calls Foolio by name and says he's done for. Let that sink in. A man was murdered in public. His killers are in jail, and they're laughing about it.
No, that worked hard to get shot on. Man, they shot his foot off last year, giving that pirate nub. Man, that post still got his foot shot off, ain't supposed to be bouncing around on his butt.
This wasn't just a cold-blooded murder, it was pure mockery. The killers didn't just take Foolio's life, they made fun of the fact that he thought he was safe. What really stood out to investigators was the tone of the call. There was no fear, no panic, not even a hint of regret. In fact, the mood felt almost like a celebration. One detective who listened to the call said it sounded like locker room talk, except instead of a game, it was about a murder. Police had already suspected gang involvement. At a press conference, the Hillsborough State Attorney's Office confirmed that the suspects were members of or connected to ATK and 1,200 rival gangs to Foolio's Crew 6 block. The investigation turned up hours of surveillance footage, phone records, and even license plate tracking. All of it showed how the suspects followed Foolio from place to place that night. It was all part of a carefully planned setup, one that ended in tragedy.
3 shooters exit a vehicle and walked in the direction of the hotel. They murdered Jones with a handgun and 2 rifles. This barrage of gunfire also struck 3 additional victims.
If all that sounds like a military-style operation, you're not wrong. But even with all the planning, what came next was surprisingly sloppy. The suspects didn't do much to cover their tracks. Cell tower data, license plate readers, and eyewitnesses quickly helped police piece everything together. It didn't take long before the arrests started. That's when the whole vibe shifted from quiet planning to full-on showtime. One of the most damning pieces of evidence, the surveillance footage. It shows 3 shooters walking in formations surrounding the hotel entrance and firing from different angles. One of them even pauses to check for movement before reloading. It's the kind of footage you'd expect to see in court, but now it's online for the world to see.
And they are shooting at Charles now, and you can see that he's the passenger in that car that's moving and trying to flee. And again, they're still shooting at him.
So why did this case blow up online? Because people aren't just seeing the crime, they're hearing what came after. The leaked phone call isn't just shocking, it's confirming what many already feared. That some of these murders aren't about survival but about clout, fame, and being known. Even Foolio's critics are disturbed. If this is how the suspects act after a high-profile killing, what kind of message does that send to the next generation watching? For Foolio's mother, who showed up at the press conference just hours after learning about the arrests, this isn't just about her son, it's about justice and holding people accountable.
His fans knew him as Foolio. But to his mom, he's Charles. We're fighting to make sure that she gets justice.
And the big question still remains. How many more young black men will be turned into hashtags before something changes? If you thought that phone call was chilling, wait until you hear what one of the suspects did right before the shooting. It could blow this whole case wide open. We're talking setup, betrayal, hidden recording devices, and even a second jail call. For most people, betrayal happens quietly. But for Foolio it may have started with a text and ended in gunfire. I've already broken down how 5 suspects tracked and killed Julio Foolio during his birthday weekend, and we went through the disturbing jail call that came out just days later, cold, cocky and shockingly casual about taking a lot. But what if I told you that might not have been the first time Foolio's name came up on a jail call, and that someone close to him may have helped set everything up? Because the next part of this story isn't just about what happened after the shooting, it's about the warning signs that were there before a single shot was fired. Let's rewind to 48 hours before Foolio's death. He had just landed in Tampa, hyping up his birthday bash on Instagram and other platforms. He posted videos showing party details, flashing bottles, and even his exact location on camera.
It got to this bit. Tampa, Florida, man. Pool party push up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, man.
What Foolio likely didn't realize was just how many people were watching him, not to party but to plot. Investigators believe his constant location updates acted like a trail of breadcrumbs, making it way too easy for his enemies to follow him. But it gets even worse. Police are now looking into the possibility that someone in Foolio's own circle may have shared his location, not by accident but on purpose. According to official reports, surveillance shows that the suspects were already following Foolio from earlier party spots, not just at the Holiday Inn. That raises a serious question. How did they know his full schedule? Even more concerning, Foolio's mother told state prosecutors that her son was trying to keep a low profile. That doesn't match the way he was posting online. Some of his friends said he planned to change hotels that night, but the shooters got there first. So either they were watching him extremely closely, or someone was feeding them inside information. And here's where the plot thickens. 2 separate sources close to the investigation say there was a second jail call that hasn't been released to the public. This one reportedly had a different tone, less cocky, more careful, more nervous. Law enforcement hasn't confirmed whether that call includes a confession, but what we do know is this. One of the suspects starts asking questions like, how much do they really have on us, and who's talking? Questions like that, combined with the surveillance footage, cell phone tracking and gang links, paint a picture of suspects who weren't acting wild but calculated. And now they might be scared of what's coming. Here's the real twist. Foolio had enemies, sure, but he also had friends, some of whom may have flipped. One of the most serious allegations being looked at right now is that someone close to Foolio, an associate he had fallen out with, was secretly helping his rivals in ATK and 1200. The groups police believe were behind the plot. That person's name hasn't been made public yet, but the timeline of their actions lines up suspiciously well with when Foolio's location was leaked. Text messages between the suspects suggest someone inside Foolio's circle gave them key information. Was Foolio set up by someone he once trusted? Multiple sources say yes. If that's true, this wasn't just a revenge hit, it was a betrayal. A former detective-turned-gang expert said this level of coordination is rare outside of cartel activity. What stood out most to him was how the attackers used both street smarts and digital tools: 6 stories, live location tags, and even facial recognition cameras near the hotel. They played chess, one retired officer said. The streets used to be about muscle. This was about tech and surgical moves. They hunted him like a target. That's why the second jail call matters so much. It could reveal who the suspects trusted, and who they now fear might be talking. Even though prosecutors have strong digital evidence, they may still run into legal roadblocks. Why? Because some suspects, including Elisa Andrews, are reportedly considering plea deals in exchange for reduced charges. Her lawyer has already said she won't waive her right to a speedy trial, which might mean she's trying to make a deal quickly, and the deal could come with names of who leaked Foolio's location, names of who got the weapons, and possibly names of who's next. Because this wasn't a one-time thing, it was part of something bigger. At a press conference just days after the murder, Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters made that clear. He didn't hold back.
These individuals have chosen lives of urban terrorism. Florida, Tampa, JSO, Jacksonville, Miami, wherever you are. Will not tolerate foolishness. We'll hold you accountable for your criminal action.
But the bigger question is, If these jail calls were being monitored, why wasn't anything done sooner? Or were the suspects many already on police radar able to plan such a deadly attack and then laugh about it afterward? And what is law enforcement doing now to stop the next high-profile hit, especially if Foolio's death is just one part of a bigger ongoing feud? Some answers might come out in court. Right now the suspects are waiting for trial, and behind bars they've reportedly been separated not just from other inmates but from each other. Why? Officials fear they might try to plan another attack or worse, silence someone who's thinking about cooperating with the prosecution. This case is far from over, and with every new leaked jail call more of the truth comes to light. Inside the jail where the suspects are being held, another disturbing reality is unfolding: a power game. According to a correctional officer who spoke anonymously, the men accused in Foolio's murder are under protective watch. They're being kept away from the general population and even from each other again because of fears they could use their influence to spark more violence or intimidate someone into staying silent. And that fear might be valid. There's growing talk that one of the suspects, possibly Elisa Andrews or Isaiah Chance, has already started cooperating. While officials haven't confirmed who may have flipped, several legal sources in Hillsborough County say that certain court motions, unusual visitation limits and the timing of certain filings point to someone cutting a deal. If that's true, then the jail call we've already heard might have just been the beginning. The second call, still unreleased, could be something else entirely. Some say it includes a warning, maybe even a threat. One source who claims to have heard it says there's a line that goes, "Tell Shorty not to make this bigger than it got to be." It's vague, cryptic, but it definitely sounds like a threat. This leads to something deeper: psychological control. These suspects aren't just gang members. According to sources inside the jail, they're skilled manipulators. One name keeps coming up: Sean Getright, one of the alleged shooters. Jail insiders say he has a history of using psychological pressure to control the younger members. Things like gaslighting, emotional guilt, and promising to help take care of their families. He runs it like a mob, one source said. Even from the inside, dudes are scared of him. That mental grip could be the reason why at least one co-defendant, possibly Andrews, hesitated to talk, even if it meant facing murder charges. Because in these crews, loyalty isn't about friendship, it's about leverage. And snitching doesn't just risk your own life, it could make your family a target too. But now prosecutors are using that same pressure in reverse. They're offering one suspect the chance to flip the whole Casado, trade loyalty for freedom, and rewrite the narrative. And here's where things get even more complicated. Investigators are now trying to figure out whether Foolio knew he was being set up. His final post videos of him looking over his shoulder, booking multiple hotels, acting paranoid, could point to him sensing something was wrong. Was he tipped off? Was he trying to throw someone off his trail? Whatever the answer, it looks like Foolio may have known more than anyone realized in his final hours. Just before his death, Foolio posted a video saying, "If you ain't got the Addy, you're not meant to be there." At first glance it sounds like a flex, just another party invite. But according to a local journalist who's been covering Jacksonville's gang scene for years, that line might have been a warning, a coded message. She believes Foolio knew he was being hunted, he just didn't know when they'd strike. And when they did strike, it was fast and brutal. The U.S. Marshals who helped arrest Davian and Richard Murphy didn't hold back. They rolled in with SWAT-style force. Pardon raids, locked down streets, full tactical gear. Why such intensity? Because these suspects weren't just accused of murder, they were believed to have access to hidden weapons, burner phones, backup from gang affiliates, and more disturbingly, plans for retaliation. According to an unsealed affidavit, investigators feared more hits were already being planned. Foolio's murder, they now believe, may have reignited a gang war that had been simmering for years. Law enforcement is preparing for what comes next. In a rare move, both the Tampa Police and Jacksonville Sheriff's Office have ramped up surveillance on known gang hotspots. They've brought in social media analysts to monitor threats and have even reached out to family members of possible future targets. Because here's the most terrifying part. In gang culture, loyalty is often just a transaction. If someone flips, cooperates with prosecutors, it doesn't just put them at risk, it puts their entire family in danger. Foolio's crew believes someone turned on. Then this story isn't over, it's just beginning. That's why every leaked jail call matters, every court motion, every phone found inside that jail. Because hidden somewhere in all those digital trails is the truth. who gave the order on who got played. And that brings us to the final twist. A shocking arrest that no one saw coming. Just when the city thought this case was heading to trial, a new name entered the courtroom and flipped the case upside down. There was a sixth man. No, he wasn't in the SUV. He didn't pull the trigger. He wasn't even in Tampa when Foolio was shot. But investigators now believe he may have been the one pulling the strings. He wasn't a known shooter, not a street affiliate. He was a former business manager, someone once close to Foolio. He had access to Foolio's travel plans, hotel bookings, show schedules, and most importantly his trust. After they had a quiet falling out, this man stayed close, still pretending to be part of Foolio's inner circle. But behind the scenes, investigators say he was feeding real-time info to the enemy affiliates connected to ATKN 1200. Digital forensics uncovered WhatsApp messages from a burner phone used by Lisa Andrews. One message stood out: "Let the streets take care of it. Just make sure dude not moving last minute again." The message didn't mention a name, but prosecutors say the timing, the context and the coordination all point to one person, and it wasn't any of the original 5. And when they brought that sixth man in for questioning, folded. According to sealed grand jury testimony, this man admitted he believed Foolio had it coming. He said Foolio had become too paranoid, too controlling, and was planning to cut several people from his team just weeks after his birthday bash. So he flipped first. His reward? A reported 5-figure payment quietly spread out through small Cash App transfers and third-party digital wallets. In return, he gave the shooters just enough information to track Foolio's every move, including the last-minute confirmation that Foolio had switched hotels to the Holiday Inn. According to police, that detail sealed his fate. But here is where the pain really hits. Foolio's fans were already heartbroken over his murder, but they had no idea that someone who used to stand right behind Foolio flashing peace signs, wearing iced-out chains, smiling in interviews, was part of the setup. That betrayal cut deeper than the bullets. On Twitter, Instagram and TikTok, tributes flooded in, but so did speculation, anger and heartbreak. "Y'all snaked the realest one out," the City One fan posted on X, formerly Twitter. Foolio always said the ops wouldn't take him. He never expected his own team. Hashtags like #Justice for Foolio, #6BlockForever and #They Set Him Up trended for days. Even some of Foolio's former rivals were disgusted by how he died. One underground Jacksonville rapper tweeted, "We ain't never rocked with bruh, but that setup SHT? Nah, that's coward work." But one of the most talked about reactions came from Charleston White, the controversial cultural critic known for his harsh takes on street culture. Within hours of the news breaking, he posted a reaction video that went instantly viral. Some people praised his honesty, others accused him of disrespecting Foolio's memory. But what made the video unforgettable was one chilling line: "Y'all keep saying rest in peace, like peace ever existed for these boys. They were born into war, raised in war, and y'all watched it like a movie." The post got over 5 million views in 24 hours, forcing many to pause and reflect, because as much as Foolio represented 6 Block through his tattoos, his disses, his beef, was also just a 26-year-old man, a son, a friend, a person whose mother had to fly across the state just to identify his body on what was supposed to be a day of celebration. The mourning didn't stop at reposts or RIP posts. Across Jacksonville and Tampa, murals of Foolio started to appear, spray-painted tributes showing his face, his lyrics and his signature hand signs. One of the most emotional moments came from a group of high schoolers in Jacksonville. They held a vigil, lighting candles and rapping along to Foolio's breakout track Crooks. One teen told the local news, "He made us feel seen. Like, if you made it out of 6 Block you could make it anywhere." But with the grief also came tension. Tampa police were forced to increase patrols near the site of Foolio's murder after someone vandalized one of the tribute walls. Outside the Holiday Inn, someone spray-painted a chilling message: "We know who did it. This ain't over." The fear of retaliation still hangs in the air. Then came the most haunting twist of all. While cleaning out Foolio's belongings, his family found a digital vault, a locked hard drive filled with photos, audio files and voice memos. One of those recordings, now verified by forensic analysts, was dated just 11 days before his death. In it, Foolio sounds drained, not angry, just tired. Tired of betrayal, Tired of pretending. I can't even sleep unless my back to the wall, he says. It's like I'm paranoid of everybody, even the ones that call me family. And then the most chilling line, if something happens to me, it's gonna be one of them that smiled in my face. That voice memo is now being used by prosecutors as part of their case. The sixth suspect has officially been indicted. The other 5 are still waiting for trial in what could become one of Florida's most high-profile gang-related murder cases in years. And as the legal system slowly moves forward, Foolio's fans remain divided. Some are calling for vengeance. Others are begging for peace, urging rival gangs and Foolio's remaining crew to break the cycle before another young man ends up with a mural instead of a milestone. But one thing is certain, this wasn't just another rapper killed. This was Charles Jones, a young man who came from one of Jacksonville's hardest blocks with nothing but a mic and a message. And in the end, he wasn't silenced by his enemies. He was betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect him. So when those courtroom doors finally open, it won't just be trials, it'll be reckoning. Because Foolio didn't just die, he left behind evidence, a warning, and a legacy that demands justice. Thank you for watching. If you want to dive deeper into more stories like this, click one of the videos on your screen now.